Hey guys, how you going? Tom here from Inspire. Thank you so much for joining me on the Kimberley workshop last week. Hope you've had time to sort of come down from that high and a chance to look at your photographs. If not, here's an opportunity to look at them again because this is the promised critique session that we just unfortunately ran out of time to do, but that's okay. Here it all is, and I'm glad that I've been able to grab all your photographs from you before we left so we could do this together. So what I wanted to show you today was each of the photographs here and just offer my suggestions for improvement at all. I've got them all loaded here into Lightroom so that we can have a bit of a play at the same time. So I always look for things like light, composition, and then obviously anything we can improve in Lightroom itself. So, Anne, we're going to have a skip through yours for the minute. Lovely shot here from Brainco's Lookout here on the Pentecost River. And I'm just going to presume that nothing's been done to these unless I can tell otherwise. So let's immediately sort of start to balance things out a little. I think overall this image to me on my screen is a little too bright. So I'm just going to take it down a fraction, although I don't want that to be too dark. So I'm going to change tact here. You know, when I'm coming to edit the pictures, I always look at, right, what can be done to improve these? You know, just what little tweaks can we do to improve this? And first things first, I think we'll just darken this sky down a little just by drawing a gradient. So this is the gradient tool over here, the rectangle. And I've drawn the gradient in, but of course there's been no effect because I haven't changed any of these sliders here yet. So when I draw down the exposure slider here by about a stop or so, we can see that that's darkening the sky there. That's quite nice. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lighten this area in the corner here with another gradient because that looks quite dark in there. So again, just draw a gradient up from the bottom left-hand corner there, drawing it up towards this top right-hand corner. And we're just going to increase the exposure this time. You see how we're just balancing that out nicely? All right, now we can start working with it, okay? Now I've got those exposure issues, well, not really issues, but just looking to balance that out. I'm just going to add a bit of magenta because we know the world looks better with a bit of magenta in it. I reckon there could also be a bit of contrast because it's looking a bit flat. So have a look at this. Once we start adding some contrast, we get some really nice colors popping out there, and the blacks are getting blacker, the whites are getting whiter. And we can add some saturation as well and just pump that up a little. Maybe a little bit of clarity just to sharpen the picture. I tell you what, I'm not so sure that we need all this sky, particularly with that bright patch there at top left-hand corner. So I'm actually going to crop that out. I think that helps it along a bit, don't you? A couple little sort of grassy things here that are a bit in the way. We can grab that spot removal tool and sort of drag that along here and just quickly get rid of those. If I had a larger file, I'd be able to zoom in heaps more and just do this a little bit more accurately, but I can't because I don't have a big file here from Anne. That's okay. That's not your fault, Anne. That's mine. So we got rid of a few of those grass there, just a little bit distracting. So this is what we started with, right? This is what we started with without the crop, and then, or with the crop, I should say. And then we've darkened the sky. We've drawn in a bit of light here in the corner, add a little magenta, etc., etc. So that's the before and after. I hope you think that's an improvement here, and others. All right, let's skip ahead and go to our next one here because we've got quite a few to get through. What a lovely shot here of the Coburn Ranges and that beautiful King River in the foreground. Don't need all that sky, so let's get rid of half of that, okay? Colour's a bit funny in this one, so like it looking very blue. So I'm just going to add a little bit of warmth to it and see what that does. Again, it's looking pretty flat. You see by a histogram, see there's plenty of space here on the left and the right. So we can afford to just add a little bit of punch to that as well. That looks great. Okay, a little bit of clarity just to make a pop. Saturation, again, just to make the colour stand out. It's quite warm, that shot. We could cool it down a little. You see, I'm always just fiddling. And now the bottom looks a little bit dark compared to the rest of the image. So let's just draw a gradient up from the bottom there and just increase the exposure a little. See how we're just lifting that up nicely? If anything, your foreground, what's down the bottom of the frame, should be brighter than what's at the top, in my mind. Okay? That top also looks a little bit hazy, although it was incredibly clear. We're so lucky. Generally, there's a lot of fires going on. So I've drawn a gradient down from there, and I'm going to add a clarity into that just to make it pop. See how it's making it pop a little? And I'm going to add the blue back in. Now, why am I doing that? Because in the Australian bush, generally speaking, what's in the foreground is generally warmer than what's in the background. it cools off as objects appear further away in the distance. And if you can replicate that here in Lightroom or any of the post-production you're doing, make the foreground warmer than the background, it gives a perception of depth, okay? Just a little trick I learnt recently from somebody else. So there's before, and there's our after, okay? Just made it a bit more punchy, and the black and white doesn't quite work, but I just thought I'd try that anyway. All right, wow, what a great image, hey? Love this. It's got so much going on there, so much depth to it. I'm just going to try just opening it up a bit with the exposure just to see if I like that or not. I don't know that I do. I actually really like the darkness in it. So I can add a little bit of clarity just to open it up slightly. Look, there's not a lot of color in it, so when we add some saturation, it's really not going to do a lot. It's almost a black and white picture anyway. So let's try it in black and white and see what works. I think that really works. I think we could add a little bit of shadow detail there, add some shadow detail just to drag out some beautiful detail here in the darker areas, for example. A little bit of clarity is just going to make it pop as well. Have a look at that. Really makes it pop. Really brings out this reflection in the river to me. So we've gone from that to that just in a few quick steps. Look, there's a couple of other things you could do with this. There's photographs within photographs here. You know, I think there's you know, a lovely sort of shot maybe just up here. Just a nice pano of that section of the river. I think there's also perhaps a nice square crop here. Somewhere in here. Yeah, something about there could work really well also. There's a square crop. Let me just go back. Is there something else? Yeah, I thought I saw something about here, like a nice square crop here. Yeah, that works well too, in my mind. Look at all these tire tracks down here. Interesting. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that one. This is a glorious shot here of the stars. Lovely to see those Milky Way. I just feel that we're on a bit of an angle here, so I'm just going to correct that here. Just grabbed the crop tool, look, and just made sure my cursor hovered just outside of the right-hand side of this this crop area here, and I've just spun that around. Okay, great exposure, and it looks really good. I'm just going to try a little bit of just increasing it a little more here. Just on my screen, it looks a little dark. A little bit more saturation is just going to really bring out the color in these domes. Look at this shooting star up here. How awesome is that? It's too bright at the top now for me because I've just increased the exposure. So I'll just draw a gradient in. Just really nicely darken that sky there. Drag the gradient down a little if we wish. So we can really just draw that in there and really darken that sky. So we've gone from sort of this to this. See how I'm just wanting to lift the color in those domes a little more, but keep the sky quite dark. In fact, I'm going to go back to this, just darken it even a little more. So if you've drawn a gradient in and you want to adjust it, just click on the gradient tool again, or any of these tools. Find the grey dot, click on it to make it active, which it then turns to black and white. And then you can start playing around with these sliders again. You see, you can start lightening and darkening this sky here. If we add a bit of clarity here too, it should just make these stars pop even more. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Maybe even a bit of clarity here. That's made these domes pop as well. So going from that to that. I hope you like that. I hope it's not too sharp on your screen. We might just crop a little bit off this bottom. We don't need all that bottom either. I'm just going to crop that out, see if that works. Lovely shot, Anne. Well done. I reckon you're best so far. This is lovely. I love the balance in this shot. I really do. I love the fact that we've got these two diagonally opposite rocks. I like the empty space here on the right. What I'm going to do is decrease the exposure on that one because it is quite bright. See, when I draw that gradient in on the right-hand side, it's darkening here on the right, but the exposure just makes it a bit muddy. If we grab the sort of dehaze tool and drag that slightly to the right here, that should help correct that. But what I'm really trying to do is balance the left and the right here in terms of exposure. Okay, the black's just making it a bit heavy. That's enough for the moment. I've gone from that to that. Then what I'm going to do is probably increase the exposure on the whole image. Contrast, because I think it really needs that. Some saturation just to make it pop. A little bit of clarity just to bring out the grain and the texture in the rock. A little bit of magenta just to change the colour ever so slightly. Make that sing a little. Just drop it down on the temperature. Maybe the bluer makes it more interesting, or maybe warming it up. No, it's too yellow otherwise. Where have we gone? From that to that. Let's see how this is coming together. Maybe a vignette. So the easiest way to find the vignette is just to go over here into presets and Lightroom effects presets. We've got 2 vignettes here, one at about a stop and a half and another one here at about 3 stops. That's too much. Let's just go to the stop and a half. What you find that just draws your eye into the photograph, okay? So we're going from this to this, okay? Lovely, lovely, lovely. It's a bit bright in here. We could use this adjustment brush that I showed you, just decrease the exposure on that a little and just draw in a little bit of an adjustment there just to darken that rock, okay? So now this to this, I think that helps it out too. The eye's always drawn to the brightest part of the image, and if this is just a bit too bright, it's probably stopping my eye searching that nice area at the back here where it's quite light. Let's go vibrance and see what that does. Adds a little bit too much magenta. Whoops, never thought I'd say that. So I like what I've done there. I'm happy with that. I'm going to move on. I'm going to skip this one end because we've got a few here. I would probably, no, I'm not going to skip it. I'll do one quick thing to it. I'm not going to process it because it's much similar to the other one. But if this was mine, I'd just crop it as a square. See? That works nicely as a square. We don't need all that space on the side. Alrighty, here's another night sky shot from you, Anne. I'm going to not do a lot to this other than I think it just needs a bit more exposure. I think the color's a little bit off. If we warm it up a little, that looks good. Saturation, just add some nice saturation to it. And maybe a little bit of clarity. Love your shooting star here. I think this is a little hot on this. The light is a little hot on this tree, and the tree is very devoid of foliage and things like that. I'd probably like to see, to be honest, I'd like to see all that left-hand side taken out, and I'd just be focusing on that, because I think these trees over here are far more appealing than what's on the left. So maybe just taking a step or two to the right, having the Milky Way more sort of here in the shot. This tree's a killer. I reckon this tree would look really good, and I think that would have just helped improve that shot there. But I'm not going to spend a lot on that one because we've got a few pictures to go through here. I think a bird flew through the photograph there on that one, so we've just gone to the spot tool just to take that out. Lovely early morning, beautiful light, so let's just emphasize that a little more. We can warm it up a little. There's not a lot of contrast in this again. I'm not sure whether you process these, Anne, but that camera is probably just getting heaps of dynamic range, which is fantastic. But I'm just going to do a little bit of this and let's see if I've overdone it. I've overdone it with the saturation. Can you see what's happening here? When I go back to forth, you see how the pixels are bleeding into one another? It's quite saturated in the first place, so best I just take that saturation off, otherwise we're not going to have any clarity in that picture. A vignette's going to really help this one, guys. Watch, watch, watch. See, something like that. Just a nice vignette just to draw the eye in again towards this tree here. Okay, a little bit of white rock and stuff down here that's a little bit distracting, so we can just take that out just with the spot tool here. Okay, and that one's done as well. I think that's all of yours, Anne. Yes, they all are. Congratulations, some beautiful, beautiful shots in there. Absolutely glorious. Let's have a look at those again. Lovely, lovely variety of shots too. Thank you very much for those. Well done, Anne. Okay, Bernie. I believe we didn't do too much in terms of processing of these, so let's go through that. Okay, so initially, what don't we like? How can we improve the shot? That's what we should be asking ourselves. Immediately, we just noticed that horizon's off, so let's just correct that a little. It had a bit of an angle to it, but let's get it nice and straight. It's lacking a little bit of excitement here with the exposure. It's a bit too dark, so let's just bring that up a little. Exposure and contrast is going to give it some punch. Always needs more magenta, so let's add some of that. And then the saturation's lacking a little. It needs a bit more vibrancy, a bit more punch. A little bit of clarity just to bring the detail out there. I'm just starting to blow out some highlight just down on the rock here. So let's grab the highlight slider and just pull that back a little. Okay. Yeah, blowing out the highlights here on the waterfall as well. Let's see where we've gone from to. Sort of from here to there. I'm reasonably happy with that. Maybe a little bit more contrast and a little bit more exposure. We just need to open this up a little more. Just drag the white slider down. You see, I dragged the highlight slider almost all the way down to the left, and yet I'm still getting highlight blowout on this waterfall and on this rock here. So I grabbed the white slider. The white deals with this far right-hand side of the histogram, right? That's where I'm blowing out these highlights. And I've just dragged that down until they disappear. Not all the way, Just drag it down until those highlights disappear and I'm done. You see, only -40 as opposed to -100. And I'm pretty much done with this photo here. Can we see the difference here? Okay, so we corrected it, the angle, corrected the off horizon there, added some exposure because it was a little dark, contrast, and then clarity and saturation as well. Very happy with that. This is a lovely shot here too. Immediately I noticed the color is a little bit green, so I'm going to add a little bit of magenta to this to just correct that. Surprise, surprise. But you'll see how much of a difference that's just initially made already. Just add some beautiful warmth to those rocks and taken away a lot of green in here. I know it was pretty green anyway, but you know me, I like to have my pictures a little warmer than cooler. Okay, so we've done that. A little bit of saturation just to bring some life back into that picture too. Maybe a little bit of clarity as well. It'll just bring out the lovely detail here in the foreground and across these hills. And that's about it, to be honest. I probably would like to have seen you, Bernie, just tilt the camera down a little more, less sky and a bit more foreground just to lead our eye into the frame. I feel like I'm just missing a little here. But we can kind of replicate that just by doing this anyway. And that'll give the appearance that there's more foreground even though there's not. We're just taking away a little bit more of the sky. Let's just come down here, see if that makes any difference. It's probably a bit tight. But I think it's pretty good. A little bit of saturation, not saturation, contrast, a bit of exposure, and we're going from that to that. Probably a bit too much magenta. Wowzers. All right. Very good. Loving that. Okay. Bloody hell. Oh, I was just about to say, I wish I knew where this was. Forgot which country I was in there for a second. That's right, the Kimberley. So, this is down on the Pentecost River there. Lovely. Look at this lovely, lovely shutter speed here of water movement. Unfortunately, we lost that metadata as we've imported this into my computer, but I'm guessing it's probably around a 15th of a second, and that gives you just a slight blurring of the water, not that misty, watery effect that we can sometimes get. Let's add a little bit of shadow detail just to bring out the detail in the corners here in particular. A little bit of saturation just to bring a little bit of color back into it, and a little bit of clarity just to sharpen things up a little. I'm going to leave those blacks as they are. I don't mind that we've lost a little bit of black here and there in the photograph itself. That's basically what we've done here, just to improve that image a little more. There's not much more that we need to do with that. That's a lovely little shot there. And again, we've got something similar here. What I'd immediately do to this is this top looks a bit bright, so let's just draw a gradient down on that, just to darken the sky or that top a little bit of saturation just to bring things in a bit. It's looking a little bit greeny, yellowy, so let's just drop the color temperature there just to make it a little bluer, and that's had a nice effect there, you see. That's just balanced things out quite nicely. So a gradient over the top just to darken the sky, and then just playing around a little bit with saturation and the color. But lovely composition, really like the composition. If you're going to include these grasses, I'd include a little bit more of them to have them be as a foreground interest. At the moment, there's probably not enough, and they could be seen by some people to be a little bit distracting. Okay, so we've got the tire marks here. Let's see, how many have we got here? 5, 6, 7. This is an interesting one. I'm not sure why you've thrown this one in, Bernie. You might be throwing this one in to put me off, or say, what the hell would you do with this one? Because I like what's there. It's just the angle disturbs me a little, because I really like this coming out of here. I might have that coming out of this corner of the frame, although now that bends too much there. And I don't think I want to go the same way as the way it's been shot to... I'm gonna try this. I know you're doing this to test me. How do I make this look awesome? That's what he's asking me, I'm sure. I really grunge it up with heaps of clarity. Add a vignette, not that heavy. Make it a bit brighter because it's a bit dark. And that's about it. Alright, so without showing off the crop as well, what I've tried to do is just simplify this a little. And in doing so, just cropped in a little, because what I really liked was this leading line here and then this figure 8 here. So let me just go back in the history just to show you what we started with. So we started with this, and we've gone to this. Okay, start with this, go on to that. Hope you like that. That was a bit of a toughie. Wow. All right, let's see what else we got here. This beautiful glow in a kidney chasm. What I would do with this one here is, let's just play with the color a little. Adding a little bit of blue into the rocks in the foreground here. I like that. A bit of saturation, just go boom, boom, boom. Maybe a little bit of clarity is just bringing out the lovely detail in the rocks here. And it's a bit hot. If we can just pull back the highlights a little maybe. You know, it's just down here. It's just add a little bit more to the shot as well. So I'm not going to do much more to that because it's basically there, right? There's so much yummy detail there and color, etc., etc. We don't want to go OTT over the top, but some of you might be thinking that already. So what have I done? Just brought back detail in the highlights a little. I think we just dropped the color temperature, added some clarity just to bring out the texture in the rock, and then some saturation as well. All right, and last but not least, nice little shot here. Wow, God, look how green it is. Yeah, very green. I'm going to crop. I'd like to see more of this, but there's not enough of it, so we're going to crop it down a little because I really want the focus to be here. Let's put a vignette on it because that again will draw our eye into the middle. It is a little green, so let's add some magenta. Okay, that's a nice little adjustment in color, you'll see. Okay, a little bit of contrast because it is lacking a little bit of contrast. It's going to pull back a little bit of detail in the highlights as well. Add some saturation just to look at the color in those rocks coming out. Isn't that glorious? Very sharp image. All right. That's one version of it. Okay. But I'm going to, I hope I'm not working too fast here, guys. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try square crop. Yeah, I like that. Because I really saw that the detail was in here. Okay. And there's yummy detail in here with those lovely trees and stuff. So what I want to do, because this is quite blank, I'm going to just darken this with a gradient. Okay. Just draw a gradient in from the corner there. It's got a little bit too much magenta in that gradient. That's not my fault. I'm not adding it. It's just that it naturally has a lot of magenta in that corner. So I'm going to take it out just by adding tint or green just to this corner of the gradient. Okay. So there we go. We're going from that to that. Just trying to draw our eye into here. Lovely. Love that too. Well done, Bernie. They're fantastic. Okay. Congratulations. Bobby, let's have a look at yours. We've got 6 beautiful images here. Okay, a lovely little sunset. Where am I thinking this was? I can't remember. Oh my goodness, that's horrible. But it's busy. It's busy. I'd like to see you probably simplify this a little. Ask yourself what you were drawn into, what you loved about this shot, and simplify it as much as possible. Let's just open it up a little, just to brighten it a little with the exposure, adding detail to the mid-tones, etc. All of a sudden, that's just really opened that picture up and brought that beautiful glow out. I don't mind that. I don't think we need to do much more to this photo than that. We could try just cropping the top off it a little. That might just simplify this shot a little more. Yeah, I think that helps. Okay, that's lovely. I like it. I like it. I like it. All right, so I'm not going to do anything with this shot because it's very similar to the shot that Anne had. And so we're just going to leave this one alone. Other than, I think there's a little bit of blurring going on here with this shot here, Bobby. Just, it's at 1/4 of a second. Or maybe the tripod moved or something. It is a little bit blurry. Okay. Wow, this is a lovely shot. We can certainly do something with this. Let's do this. I'm just worried about here. I'd love to have seen all of the reflection. So you either include all of it or just a very little part of it. And I'll show you how to do that. If I was just to include a very little part of it, I'd crop all of this sky out in the reflection and just have it like that. So that very much works. Otherwise, obviously, you would just tilt the camera down just to get the top of this dome here in the bottom, and you'd still have plenty of room to get the top there as well, okay? But we don't have that. We won't add it in Photoshop. We'll just drag that up. Got some nice little leading lines coming out of the bottom corner here, okay? Let's just open this up a little because it's a little dark in those shadow areas, so I'm not going to do it via exposure. I'm going to do it via shadows. And this highlight here, let's get rid of that. Let's just grab the highlight slider, drag that to the left until it disappears, so it's only very little out. Let's add some saturation because it really needs that. just to make it go punch. Bit of clarity just to bring out a little bit of texture. Not too much clarity, guys, because remember, it sucks. Look at that. It sucks all the colour out. Makes it very contrasty. We don't want to do that. Just a little bit of clarity if you need it. All of a sudden, we've gone from this to this. Okay, we're getting there. Let's draw a gradient in this corner, into this sky here, just to darken that sky, not make it so obvious. Now, it's quite blue, and I don't think it matches the rest of the picture. So let's add some warmth to it, maybe a bit of yellow and a bit of magenta, just to add some nice sort of pink to that corner. Just dampen down the brightness there. I think that's worked. That's nice, beautiful shot, Bobby. Well done. Okay. This one's quite strong too. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm just seeing what else we got here. Again, what I would do is, I don't think this is actually a crooked horizon. I thought you were up on the edge there, so let's just correct it anyway. I think we can probably do that. Oh, excuse me. Look, it's 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm yawning. Still catching up on my sleep after the workshop. And let's just, it does look a little bit sort of green, so I'm adding a little bit of magenta, of course, some saturation just to make it pop, a little bit of clarity as well. And that's about it. Don't need to do much more than that. As you can see here, just a little bit of change in the colour, clarity, and a bit of saturation, and that's helped that along enormously, I think. Lovely. And we've got a couple more here. So this is just a gorgeous glow here. We're just going to increase that exposure just to bring us a bit more detail. But then I'm going to add a vignette because I really want our eye just to be drawn into the middle there. And I wonder, I'm just going to make a little stand a little differently here. I'm going to try this. I don't know that we need all that foreground. So it's going to be a square crop, see? Like this. I think that works really well. Let's see how this is all dark on the right here. Let's draw a gradient here on the left and just darken that left-hand side to kind of match it. See? See what we've got there now? That's really nice, don't you think? So we've gone from sort of that to that. See where the lightness is now? You see, this is the original, okay? It's probably equally as bright here on the left as it is in the middle. But what I've done now is brought the brightness into the center, so that's where our eye goes. Add a little bit of saturation to make it pop. A little bit of clarity as well. And all of a sudden we've gone from that to that. I think that really is a beautiful shot there, Bobby, and really emphasizes what we're trying to do here. All right. And then we've got this lovely little tree here. Let's just crop this out here. If you're going to have this in the background, we need to see that all of that rocky outcrop there. We'll just take a little bit off here. Okay. Increase the exposure a little because it's a little bit dark. Some saturation, clarity, just to sharpen it a little. And we've got some lovely detail and lovely depth of field there. That's at f7.1 at 2/50th of a second with a 50mm lens. I'm surprised that looks like it's a lot like an f4 or an f2.8 aperture, but maybe just with that sensor and camera you've got there, that's what we end up with. That's a beautiful shot. Really enjoying that one. Yawning again. Oh my goodness. I need to go for a run or something, maybe. Get some oxygen into the lungs. That's glorious, glorious, glorious. I'm just going to grab a glass of water and come back, and we're going to do the other lot. Okay, I'm back. Okay, let's have a quick look at Brett's again, because we've looked at those once already, but I might be able to offer some suggestions on how to improve these. So a lovely little shot there taken in the corner near the thermal spring there. Here it's Emma Gorge with a nice little change in the angle there, which is nice. Just checking out there, nice little tree there. Lovely shot there. Nice little pano. Well done, Brett. Okay, this one here is a lovely little shot too of this plant. Let's just try opening it up a bit, right? So what I'm going to do is, it looks a bit dark on my screen, so if I open it up with exposure, it's just going to bring some nice detail into the darker areas here. But in doing so, I'm just blowing out the highlights on those white flowers. So what I'll do is I'll just drag back the detail in those highlights just with the highlight slider. So what I've done is I've added just some nice details for that shot to bring it out and not blow out the highlights in the flowers. Just get rid of that distraction there. That's it. That is gorgeous, gorgeous shot. But I think you'll notice there that it's just, unless you want to intentionally print it dark, which some people like to do, of course, I'll just brighten that up just for argument's sake. Okay, lovely little shot here. It looks a bit dark on my screen, so we can just open that up. Bring back some highlights. So we can do this both. We can add some exposure to bring out some detail, and if it ends up blowing out the highlights, we can just peg that back with this one here. Definitely some magenta. Watch this, watch this, watch this. Oh, we can add lots of magenta to this. Look out. Wowzers. Add some saturation. It's feeling quite blue, isn't it? I might be going over the top here, ladies and gents. Definitely going over the top. Let's peg that back a bit. I just want to try this. Let's see if we just quite like this foreground, but I kind of want to see more of it. I want the camera to be pointing down a bit more. What happens if we took it out? What happens if we did a pano more like that? I think that could work equally as well. So try that, Brett, if you want to just try taking that foreground out. Although I do like these rocks, but they're very close to the bottom. That's why I'm feeling like I want to point the camera down a little more. Okay. Lovely little shot here. I don't think he's worked this. Bring out some detail in the shadows a little. Let's drop this sky down. We don't need all that sky. Okay, drop the sky down a bit. Add some saturation just to make it sing. A little bit of clarity. You see that? See that? See that? And we're pretty much done with that. Doesn't that look good? Notice how bringing down and cropping the sky out just makes it feel like we've got a little bit more here, because that's what I want. I want more here, but I don't want all that sky, you see. I want to use the rule of thirds just to be able to see more of what's of interest to me, which is the land. So if I crop the sky out, it gives the impression that there's more of this. I hope that makes sense. Lovely little shot here. I think I was describing when I just showed this to you first time around. There's lots of different crops in this. We've got a square here. We can do a nice square crop just of that section just there with a little wave, I call it. And these are 3 clumps and then the lines here. Or we can swing it across here and drag this square down and just do a square just to those lines, you see. Lovely, beautiful texture in there. Do something with that. Otherwise, we could do one just of these bushes here like this, you see. Something nice like that as well. There's an infinite amount of different crops we can do to this shot, which is lovely. Okay, this one here, lovely little shot here, nicely seen, nice abstract. Let's just make this a little brighter. And you can add a little bit of contrast in there. See, once we add the brightness, just because it looks a bit flat, you see this histogram is quite flat and quite a well away from white here. So let's increase the exposure there to drag that histogram more across to the right to make the whites whiter. But then it goes a bit flat, so we can add some contrast just to have the blacks be a bit blacker, keep the whites nice and white, and adds a bit of punch. So we've gone from sort of this to this. Okay, we could add a little bit of clarity just to bring out some detail there. You could add some saturation, but be cautious because it might look well oversaturated, okay, and a bit overdone. And then if you wanted, you could add a vignette, although I'm always hesitant, I should say, in adding a vignette on light backgrounds like these in the corners, because it ends up just going muddy. Let me show you. See, it goes a little bit dark and muddy in the corners there. So let's not do that. Let's just leave it as is. So we're going from that to that. Very nice, very nice, very nice. And a lovely shot here of the cathedral. And just checking where we're at with images. Quite heavily saturated, so we could take a little bit out there. But I feel it's on a slight angle as well, so I'm just going to correct that a little. Apologies if it's not, but it just does feel like it's on a bit of an angle, so we'll fix that up a little. And that's immaculately done. I don't know why I use those words, but that to me is done. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Well done, Brett. Some beautiful shots in there, mate. You should be very proud. young David. I understand that none of these have been worked. So let's go to town on them. Looking a little warm, so let's just take out the warmth in it using temperature. Add a little bit of blue back in. Some saturation just to add some colour to it. Bit of contrast because it's looking a bit flat. Maybe a bit of clarity, although I don't want to use too much of that. And all of a sudden we're going from that to that. Just looking a little warm on my screen, David, so I was just cooling it down a little. I hope that is acceptable. It's a lovely little study. I think that was probably Zebedee. Going a bit crazy. What a lovely shot. Just love the clarity in this picture. Shot on a 90mm, your sexy 90mm macro, which is very sharp lens. At a 250 to the second at f2.8. Let's zoom in here. Look at that. Very, very sharp. Loving the detail here. Very nicely done. Of course, what do we got to be careful of, guys, here when we're using macro? Of course, shallow depth of field, but what should we focus on? We always focus on our subject. In my mind, which is the spider, so I was just checking to make sure that was nice and sharp. You could probably add a little bit of exposure. No. I was just going to want to line it up so I could see a bit more of the detail in the spider. But in doing so, lightening up the what's underneath in the background there and under the water. I don't want that. Let's add a little bit of contrast. We could probably grab this adjustment brush, grab the exposure, add a little bit of feather to it, make it quite small, and just draw a little bit of detail into this spider. Not all over the legs and everything, just into the body. Let's have a look, see what it's done. Not too much, but I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go with a little bit of saturation there too. Just to add a bit of colour in there, a little bit of clarity just to make things pop, particularly under the water there. That's looking pretty cool. So we've gone from that to that. It's still looking quite yellow. Let's add a little bit of blue. My dog's going for a walk outside. Hi, Claude. He's deaf as well as blind now. So there you go. I hope that's helped. It's one of those shots. It's as I look at this and I say, oh, well, that's what I've done to improve it. I'm not sure that has improved it a lot. It's one of those shots where it's 99% there already without fiddling with it. And sometimes you can fiddle unnecessarily. You've got all these tools at your disposal. You start fiddling with them all thinking it looks better, and sometimes it's just best left alone. I'll let you decide whether I've improved that or not. Okay, let's have a look, see what else we've got here. Okay, lovely little vertical shot here, a nice reflection. I'm not seeing it as a vertical, I'm seeing it more as a horizontal shot here because I want to see more on the sides rather than top and bottom. So I'm going to do something radical. I'm going to crop it as a square, and I'm just going to, I feel like it's just on a bit of too much of an angle there, David. So I'm just going to straighten it up. And the reason I've straightened it up that way is because I was just looking at the termite mound there, and on this angle, it's leaning to the left. So I've just corrected that a little. Okay, it's a little dark, so we're just going to open that up a little with the exposure. I really love the color palette, the feel to it. It's got a beautiful softness to it. I don't think it needs to be over the top with saturation or clarity or anything like that. It's just going to change the look and the feel of the shot. I will play a little bit with the color just to see whether... Yeah, it's quite warm on my screen, so maybe we could just cool it down a little, although David might have gone for that effect of having it quite warm. I quite like it warm or cooler. You could go either way. All right. Lovely reflection, very nicely seen. Well done. Okay, let's have a look at this one here. Take out a bit of the sky here. We don't need all that sky. It feels a little green, a little blue, so let's warm it up a bit. A little bit of magenta, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of saturation maybe, not too much. Wow, it just really blows out. No, let's not do the saturation because it was really just blowing out the colour here in the domes. Vibrance might do something, not much. The only other thing I do to this is the sky just feels really hot, as in bright. So if we just darken the exposure a bit on the sky, let's add some magenta to that sky just to cancel out that green. See how it's looking quite greeny yellow in the sky? if you wanted to make the sky bluer, just add more blue just to the gradient. But I think that's worked pretty well. Let's go. See, I love this backslash key underneath the delete key. When you're in the develop module, if you use this backslash key, you can see a before and after of your shot. I love just using it just to check in and see where I'm at with things. Have I taken the shot too far? Have I done 1 or 2 or 3 stops too many in my processing? It's nice just to be able to click on this and just go, yeah, okay, no, I should probably stop there, or actually, no, I've taken that too far. Go back to our history over here and maybe go back a few steps sometimes. But 9 times out of 10, it's not that I've gone too far. It's just I'm checking in and saying to myself, yeah, I'm happy with its progress. I'm happy with where it's come to, and I've changed that enough that I like it. I hope that makes sense. Here's a similar shot there to where we saw Bobby's of this beautiful tree here. So a different sort of take on it, where we've got more of a close up of this, David. Nice one, nice one. Let's add a vignette just to draw our eye into the middle. You can add a 2 or a 1 or a 2. I've done a 2 there just to make it strong. It's a bit flat, so I'm going to add a bit of contrast just to make it punch a little more. A little bit of clarity. No, not so much saturation because it goes a bit yellowish, but I'm pretty happy with that. What I've done to improve that is just added that vignette on the outside there, added some contrast just to make that pop. I hope that helps. Oh, we've got one more. Alrighty, the Cathedral Gorge again. Now, a bit dark on the left-hand side here, so what we'll do is we'll grab the gradient here and we'll drag it in from the left, right? So everything to the left of this dot is going to be brightened. So let's just, not too much, right? We don't want this because that's just BS. At the end of the day, it's darker in here. We know the light's coming in here from the right. This is a cave and we don't expect that to be too bright. So, it's dark here. Let's brighten it up a little, but let's not go over the top, okay? Let's not have it be too unrealistic. You'll just notice here, as I'm lightening that section though, it's quite saturated, quite red compared to the rest of the image. You can always take out a little bit of saturation when you draw in the gradient as well, right? See what I've done there? Drawn in the gradient, I've lifted the exposure up, but then I've gone, oh, that's a bit too saturated there, so take the saturation out. All right. We're back here to the main image here. Might just lift it a little here in exposure. Add some saturation this time, but this is global saturation, okay? I took out the saturation here on the left because I knew that I was going to add it later on, and if I'd added it globally to this whole image, sure, it would have been fine for here on the right because that did need a lift, but in here, if I hadn't taken that saturation out with the gradient and then added the saturation later here as a global saturation, i.e. affecting the whole image, this would have been far too saturated. Okay, so we've gone from that to that. It does feel slightly unbalanced to me, David, just because we've got this tree here in the far right-hand corner. We've got the markings here of the waterfall here in the center, and then I just don't think that this balances it enough here on the left. There's one thing you could do, and you're screaming at me now, but you could just balance it out by doing that. Look, it's one of those shots where you could leave it as is, or you could take several crops from the one picture like we've been doing with other shots, and so that's just an alternative. Nice one, David. Thank you for sharing those. We have Elaine's, and then that's it. So let's have a look at yours, Elaine. This is a lovely shot. I really like this. This was on the first morning there at Miramar, and we have these spinifex grasses in the foreground, and then this tree being lit in the background. You have to be really careful with the way I process these because I know Elaine likes to shoot dark and have that, I guess, that mystery. I'd call it mystery in her shots there. If it were me, I'd be trying to lift these up a little. Just because I like to be able to see a bit more detail in there. But I know, Elaine, you're probably cursing me and you're probably going, no, I don't like that, I don't want that. That's cool too. I guess I'm just showing to the other guys if they were to encounter, a shot like this, that perhaps they'd accidentally underexposed it, how they could go about to recover that. Okay, so you could just lift up the exposure here. It's still keeping the background nice and dark, but it's just lifting the mid-tones here, lifting all of the detail in the shot. Okay. Oh God, the kids are home. Hope they stay out of the room for another 5 minutes. Crikey, they're going to kill each other. All right, so we have focus, Tom, focus. The King River here. Okay, quite a warm shot there, and again quite dark. I'm gonna add to it. I'm gonna add a little bit of contrast here. I'm gonna add these whites in a little just to make that just pop a little just in here, but still keep it purposely quite dark. So maybe a bit of clarity is just going to do something to this shot too. The clarity is just going to make all of these veins pop and all of this. There's lots of detail in it, right? So the clarity will just help enhance that detail even more. You can see that there. Nice one. Okay, we've got quite a dark shot here too with this bend. Okay, what I'm immediately inclined to do is just drag this gradient down here a little, just to lift this a little. See, I quite like that. I quite like being able to drag this gradient over the top here, because it's just lifting the detail here in the top of the image here, and I'm being able to see that beautiful river flow to the background. So to me, it's giving it a fair bit of depth. Elaine's probably killing me about now. Let's crop this sky out at the top here, because that's a bit distracting. Just gonna give that a bit of balance there. I quite like that. And the other thing you could do is you could just lift this crop up here and crop it more as a pano, and just you're almost filling the frame just with that river just winding off there. I really like that. Really love it. Love it, love it, love it. Well done, Elaine. Lovely, lovely, lovely. A little bit of saturation, a little bit of contrast. Print it down, print it up, do whatever you like. Okay? Oh, again, look at this lovely detail here in this dragonfly. Let's, this looks like it's been cropped as a pano. I'm inclined to crop it square, get rid of this little distraction there, bring this across to here a bit, and do a bit of that. I quite like that. I'm going to go this way and lighten this heap so you can see heaps of detail in here. Again, Elaine's killing me. But this is where you can actually blow the background out with the highlights, just to be able to show off the detail in the dragonfly. But just for argument's sake, I'm just showing you what's possible. Let's add a little bit of clarity now. I think we've had some clarity added to it anyway. I'm loving I guess the benefit of printing this quite dark, or processing this quite dark like Elaine has done, is that you do get this lovely detail coming off the wings here, for example. It's quite a mysterious sort of shot with that darkness in it, don't you think? All right, let's just see here. We're going here, a couple more. I really love the subtle light across here. I think that's quite glorious, and in here as well. I think if this is a vignette or a gradient in the top right-hand corner, it's way too heavy for me. I think if that was just a little bit softer, it wouldn't be taking my eye away from the glow here. So I'm just going to try and correct that a little, Elaine. Hope you don't mind. Let's see if I can just... Yeah, we've got a lot of JPEG artifact stuff happening in there, which is creating that sort of banding and what's happening there. But I think I prefer that. Just I find that really distracting because that corner is so dark. But I really love the glow and everything else that's happening in here. It's quite nice. Just lift that up a slight fraction more. Lovely, lovely, lovely. You know what? We could also crop it like a pano to have the space here with the reflection and the top of that dome to be equal up here. We can crop it like that. Crop it as a pano. Another little favourite of mine, to say if it doesn't work, try cropping it as a pano, see how that works. Lovely, lovely, lovely. This is just a bit of fun that Elaine put in, she tells me. My lonely shoes. I thought she'd just had me standing there and just had cloned me out, so all that was left was my shoes. But no, there they are. Ooh. Now, this is a classic case of where printing it down or processing it down is just adding so much mood to this shot. This is really where it works for me. I just want to walk through there, right? I just want to walk around that corner and see where this glow is coming from. It's got some real mystique about it, this particular shot here. I absolutely love it. You'll notice that if I brighten it, it's got a different feel to it, but not nearly as enticing as what Elaine's done here in order to just have our eyes just go, wow, what is going on in the background there? That's incredible. Like, can you imagine, and Elaine, I hope that we get to see this exhibited one day, because can you imagine this in a gallery, and I would hope a quite sort of dark gallery, but lit correctly, whereby the lights on this print would just have that glow just come to life. It would be, if it was lit properly, this and printed properly, this would be absolutely exquisite shot. I mean, it is anyway, but what I'm trying to say is an exquisite print. It would be an absolutely exquisite print. All right, guys, that is that. There's some glorious shots in there, and I don't feel like I've done nearly enough sort of like Lightroom work to them. Maybe you guys just got it and like just are on it and doing great stuff in Lightroom already. I hope you've learned something from that, and I hope that I just tried to keep it brief because I didn't really want to keep it going for too long because I didn't want to bore you. But if there's anything else that you'd like to know or need me to expand on based on what I've just done there in this little critique session, let me know. And don't be strangers. Please keep in touch. Thank you again from Mary and I for coming on the Kimberley Workshop, and hope to see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.